She graced 500 covers, married a rock star, and broke the fashion mold, yet was left with nothing by the man she loved. This is Paulina Porizkova's story. And it's not what you think. At just 3 years old, she was left behind in communist Czechoslovakia while her parents fled the regime. For 7 years, she believed they were dead. By 25, she had become one of the most recognized faces in the world and the first Central European to land a $6 million modeling contract. But Paulina wasn't just a beauty icon, she was a disruptor. With her piercing honesty about aging, grief, and the ruthless mechanics of the fashion industry, she has become one of its fiercest critics and its most authentic voice. Behind the glossy covers and runway lights is a woman shaped by abandonment, driven by resilience, and unafraid to confront the system that tried to silence her. This is the journey of Paulina Porizkova, the supermodel who refused to fade away. Paulina's story begins in Cold War Czechoslovakia, 1965. Her parents, anti-Soviet activists, made the heartbreaking decision to flee their homeland when Paulina was just 3 years old. What should have been a temporary separation became a 7-year nightmare when her parents were unable to secure her release from behind the Iron Curtain. "My grandmother told me they were dead," Paulina once revealed in an interview. "She thought it would be easier for me to accept than the truth, that they had abandoned me." For 7 years, little Paulina lived with her grandmother, believing she was an orphan. Meanwhile, her parents fought desperately through international courts to regain custody of their daughter. The political battle became so high profile that even the Swedish Prime Minister intervened. Finally, at age 9, Paulina was reunited with her parents in Sweden. But the damage was done. The abandoned child had become a guarded, distrustful young girl who struggled to connect with the strangers who called themselves her parents. "I didn't speak their language, I didn't know them, and suddenly I was supposed to love them," she later recalled. "It was like being kidnapped by people claiming to be your parents." This early trauma would shape Paulina's life in ways she couldn't imagine, instilling in her a fierce independence and resilience that would later help her navigate the cutthroat world of high fashion. Paulina never dreamed of becoming a model. In fact, as a teenager in Sweden, she considered herself awkward and unattractive. With her distinctive Slavic features, high cheekbones, piercing blue eyes, and full lips, she stood out in a sea of blonde Swedish girls. "I was the weird-looking foreign kid with the strange accent," she once said. "Modeling wasn't even on my radar." But fate had other plans. In 1980, her friend sent Paulina's photos to a modeling agency without telling her. The agency immediately called, but 15-year-old Paulina thought it was a joke and hung up. Fortunately, they called back. Within months, the weird-looking foreign kid was working in Paris. By 17, she had moved to New York, and at 18, she landed her first Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue cover, the first Central European model to do so. But it was her second consecutive Sports Illustrated cover in 1985 that catapulted her to superstardom. Suddenly, Paulina was everywhere: Vogue, Elle, Harper's Bazaar. Designers fought to have her walk their runways. Photographers clamored to capture her unique beauty. In 1988, she signed what was then the highest-paying modeling contract in history, $6 million with Estée Lauder. The beauty giant was betting big on this newcomer, and the pressure was immense. "Everyone was waiting for me to fail," she later admitted. "I was this unknown girl from a communist country who'd just been handed the keys to the kingdom." But Paulina didn't fail. Instead, she redefined what it meant to be a supermodel in the late 80s and early 90s, bringing a sense of strength and intelligence to her work that set her apart from her peers. Her style, elegant, statuesque, yet quietly defiant, paved the way for a new type of fashion icon. Models like Paulina Porizkova and Paulina's fellow Czech star Eva Herzegová would later cite her as a trailblazer for women from Eastern Europe entering the Western fashion world. She became a symbol that beauty wasn't limited to one mold or accent. To this day, her influence can be seen in fashion campaigns that embrace authenticity and global representation, something rare in her era, but now a movement she helped start. While her career was reaching meteoric heights, Paulina's personal life took an equally dramatic turn. In 1984, while shooting the music video for the Cars' haunting ballad Drive, she met frontman Rick Ocasek. He was 21 years older, married, and a stark contrast to the glamorous world she was dominating. Yet, there was a magnetic connection between them. "It wasn't love at first sight," Paulina later shared. "It was recognition, like I'd known him all my life." After Ocasek's divorce, the two began dating, and by 1989, they were married in a private ceremony. To the world, it was a dream pairing, the dazzling supermodel and the eccentric rock legend. They settled in a Manhattan townhouse and had 2 sons. From the outside, it looked like a glamorous and balanced life. But privately, the scales were tipping. Paulina, still in demand, chose to step back from the limelight to raise their children and support Rick's career. She turned down fashion campaigns, films, and global tours, sacrifices she made out of love, not obligation. "I thought that's what women did," she later admitted. "They made room. They compromised." Her decision reflected a generational reality many women of the era could relate to, sidelining personal ambitions for family and loyalty. Yet, Paulina's exit from the spotlight marked a turning point in how the industry treated aging women. As she disappeared from covers, a younger generation of models, many of whom had admired her poise and intellect, began to question the harsh shelf life imposed on models. Christy Turlington once credited Paulina for showing that models could have a voice beyond beauty. Helena Christensen has praised her for daring to grow older in public. Her elegance, grace, and willingness to speak openly about the industry's double standards gave permission to others. She wasn't just a supermodel, she was a blueprint for what life after modeling could look like. But while the fashion world was shifting slowly, her personal world was about to be shaken to its core. In 2018, after nearly 30 years together, Paulina and Rick quietly separated. The plan was an amicable divorce. Despite the split, they continued living in the same house and co-parenting their sons. Paulina even cared for Rick as his health declined. But in September 2019, her world collapsed. She found Rick unconscious in their Manhattan townhouse. He had died in his sleep from heart disease. The grief was immediate and profound, but it was only the beginning of her pain. Shortly after his death, Paulina discovered that Rick had written her out of his will. "Paulina is not entitled to any elective share because she has abandoned me," the will stated. To the public, it read like a scandal. To Paulina, it was a devastating blow that reawakened the deepest wound of her life, abandonment. First as a child in communist Czechoslovakia. Now, again, by the man she had loved for over 3 decades. "I was so devastated that the man I had trusted and loved for 35 years would do this to me," she wrote on Instagram. "I couldn't breathe, I couldn't think, I was utterly destroyed." Despite her long and successful career, Paulina had let Rick manage their finances. She had focused on their family, not her financial independence. Now, at 54, she had no access to their money, no career in motion, and no safety net. She was forced to borrow money from friends just to buy groceries. She sold the home they had lived in for 30 years to stay afloat. It was an unimaginable fall, from supermodel to survival mode. But Paulina didn't hide her struggle. Instead, she opened up, publicly, candidly, heartbreakingly. On social media and in interviews, she shared her story, not as a victim, but as a woman refusing to be silenced. Her honesty resonated far beyond fashion. Women around the world, especially those rebuilding their lives after betrayal or financial collapse, saw themselves in Paulina. She became more than a familiar face. She became a mirror, a voice, a symbol of perseverance in the face of public humiliation. And rather than retreat, Paulina prepared for a comeback no one expected. Most people, after facing a public betrayal and financial ruin, would fade quietly from the spotlight. But Paulina Porizkova chose a different path, one that shocked the fashion world and redefined her legacy. She didn't hide her aging face behind filters. She didn't pretend to have it all together. Instead, she turned to Instagram and began telling the unvarnished truth. "I'm 56 and I'm visible," she declared in one viral post featuring a raw, unretouched photo of herself in lingerie. "I refuse to be invisible anymore." In an industry obsessed with youth, this was revolutionary. Paulina spoke openly about grief, insecurity, financial anxiety, and the emotional weight of being discarded, not just by a partner, but by a culture that devalues women after 40. She revealed her use of laser treatments and non-invasive procedures, not as vanity, but as a form of self-care in a world that weaponizes appearance. She opened up about depression, anxiety, and the fear of starting over. Her honesty struck a powerful chord. Women across generations began flooding her comments with messages of gratitude. They had felt erased. Now they saw a woman facing their same fears and refusing to back down. Paulina's voice became a rallying cry for middle-aged reinvention, challenging not just beauty standards but the silence imposed on aging women. The same society that glorifies young women discards them when they're no longer young, she wrote. "I'm here to say that women in their 50s are not done. We're just getting started." The fashion world took notice. In 2021, Paulina appeared nude on the cover of Vogue Czechoslovakia, 42 years after her modeling debut. The headline read, "The Return of the Original Supermodel." But this was more than a comeback. It was a reset. She wasn't returning to play by the old rules. She was rewriting them. Brands began calling again, not for nostalgia, but because she had become relevant in a new way. Not just as a face, but as a force. In an era demanding authenticity, Paulina was offering it, unfiltered and unapologetic. She reminded the world that beauty doesn't fade, it evolves. And for the first time in decades, aging had a glamorous, relatable spokesperson who had truly earned her wrinkles. Paulina Porizkova could have coasted on nostalgia. A few magazine features, a quiet memoir, an occasional red carpet appearance. That's the standard path for aging icons. But Paulina never followed the script. Instead, she shattered it. While many women in the public eye carefully curate their image, Paulina leaned into discomfort. She tackled the fashion world's final taboo: aging. "We're allowed to age, but not to look like we're aging," she said bluntly. "It's a trap designed to make women feel inadequate at every stage of life." Rather than chase youth, she confronted society's fear of growing older with brutal honesty. Her posts, unfiltered selfies, vulnerable reflections, tearful admissions became a digital journal of modern womanhood. In 2021, she released her book No Filter: The Good, the Bad, and the Beautiful, a collection of essays chronicling her evolution from abandoned child to supermodel to cultural critic. It wasn't a vanity project, it was a battle cry. The book became a bestseller, not because it glamorized her life, but because it told the truth most women are too afraid or too silenced to voice: the aging body, the loneliness of reinvention, the internalized shame of being past your prime. "I'm not trying to look younger," she explained. "I'm trying to look like the best version of the age I am. There's a difference." Her vulnerability earned her a new generation of fans and the admiration of women who had once shared the stage with her. Cindy Crawford publicly praised her transparency. Naomi Campbell reposted her messages about aging with respect. In interviews, newer models like Emily Ratajkowski and Ashley Graham have cited Paulina as a rare voice who made it okay to be both beautiful and flawed in public. Even in financial matters, Paulina was fearless. While most celebrities protect their wealth image at all costs, she admitted, plainly, that she had to start working again to survive. "I was the woman who had it all," she wrote. "And then, suddenly I didn't. That's a story we don't hear often enough." In doing so, Paulina didn't just reclaim her power. She helped redefine what power looks like for women over 50, not quiet elegance, but bold presence, not graceful exit, but fiery return. After the heartbreak of betrayal and the collapse of the life she had built, many wondered if Paulina would ever open her heart again. Love, once her sanctuary, had become a source of pain, loss, and public humiliation. And yet, even after being abandoned by her parents and later by the man she shared 35 years with, Paulina dared to be vulnerable again. "Trust doesn't come easily to me," she admitted in a 2021 interview. "When you've been abandoned twice in your life, you start to wonder if it's something about you." Then, in a twist worthy of a movie script, Paulina re-entered the public eye with none other than acclaimed screenwriter and director Aaron Sorkin. The pair made their official debut at the 2021 Academy Awards, walking the red carpet hand in hand. Their relationship, though short-lived, became symbolic. It wasn't just about romance. It was about reclaiming joy, worth, and the right to love again at any age. Paulina wasn't hiding her scars. She was showing that healing was still possible, even after decades of emotional trauma. "I'm so grateful for his presence in my life, even if it was only temporary," she wrote after their breakup. "It reminded me I was still capable of feeling joy." Her openness about dating in her 50s, awkward first dates, fears of rejection, unexpected connections, struck a chord with millions of women navigating similar journeys. She made the experience feel normal, even hopeful. Today, at 58, Paulina Porizkova represents something rare in fashion and culture. A woman who transcended her youthful beauty to become a symbol of authenticity, resilience, and relevance. Her legacy isn't just written on the pages of Vogue or the runways of Paris. It's inscribed in the lives of women who saw in her not just glamour, but guts. She is unquestionably one of the few supermodels who used her fame not to secure silence and comfort, but to challenge the very industry that once crowned her. She confronted ageism, spoke honestly about grief and financial ruin, and refused to disappear into the cultural margins. "My value as a woman isn't measured by my appearance," she recently wrote. "It's measured by my experiences, my wisdom, my compassion, my ability to love and be loved." Younger models today, especially those navigating the harsh pressures of modern social media, now look to Paulina as a blueprint. Model and activist Cameron Russell has praised Paulina's honesty as a rare and needed compass for women in fashion. Czech models like Paulina Porizkova have cited her as a national icon who made it possible for Eastern European women to break into an industry dominated by Western beauty standards. Even outside the fashion world, her message resonates. Paulina has become a speaker, a mentor, a role model, not for her past, but for what she continues to become. She is living proof that reinvention is not a chapter. It's a lifelong skill. Her journey, from a forgotten child behind the Iron Curtain to a cultural voice in the age of Instagram, feels more relevant today than ever. In a world chasing perfection, Paulina celebrates imperfection. In a society obsessed with youth, she embraces the elegance of survival. She has faced abandonment, fame, betrayal, and grief, and each time she's risen stronger and more self-possessed. Her story is not about a fall from grace, but about the power of grace after the fall. "I'm not done yet," she says with characteristic resolve. "Not even close." And that might be her most radical message of all. that a woman's most interesting chapter doesn't begin before she's seen the world, it begins when she finally sees herself. If beauty fades, but wisdom grows, why does the world keep choosing the former? Paulina didn't, and maybe that's the rebellion we need most.